Hi, I'm Congressman Luis Gutierrez, and you're watching Tape with Rabbi Doug.
We're gonna see Rabbi Doug. We're gonna see Rabbi Doug. We're gonna see Rabbi Doug on your TV tonight. But Daddy, I want to watch Monday Night Football.
Forget about Monday Night Football. There's no other thing we're going to watch on Monday but Rabbi Doug.
Yeah, Rabbi Doug on TV tonight. We're going to see Rabbi Doug. Oh, everybody talk about that.
Shalom and welcome to Taped with Rabbi Doug. We are here for part 2 of AIPAC 14, the conference here in Washington, D.C. We have a number of politicians, a number of famous people who are going to be speaking here at this convention. You won't want to miss it. Stay with us here for part 2 at AIPAC Conference 14 right here on Taped with Rabbi Doug. Shalom, welcome to Taped with Rabbi Doug. We are here in Washington, D.C. at the AIPAC 14 conference, and I'm here with Rabbi Steven Weil of the OU, the Union of Orthodox Jewish Congregations, and you are not only a presenter here on stage at AIPAC this year, but you're also one of the coordinators of a lot of the programming for the Orthodox rabbis in the community. How did you get to the OU? How did it all start?
Oh, it's a long story. Actually, Steve Savitsky, who was president of the OU, he recruited me when I was in Beverly Hills, Rabbi Beth Jacob.
At Beth Jacob Congregation, the largest Jewish congregation on the West Coast.
Yeah, that's true. But I got to tell you, we might have been the largest Jewish congregation on the West Coast, Orthodox congregation, but we get our sausage from Chicago.
There you go.
Big fans of Romanian, despite that we have Jeff's Gourmet, which is a great place in LA.
Love Jeff's Gourmet on Pico Boulevard. Great place.
That's right.
Great place. So, what is your position with the OU, first of all, that kind of brought you into programming here for AIPAC?
Well, we have a situation where, how do we get Orthodox Jews, instead of spending 3 hours on Shabbos lunch, or 3 hours Friday night talking about Israel, never saying one tefillah, never writing one check to support one congressman or one senator, but they get it out of their system, it builds up, it bottles up, and then next week they sit at the 3 hour Shabbos lunch and do it all over again. That's just not healthy. You know what I mean? It's just a toxic way of dealing with it. So we started with 5 pilots, and now we have over 70 congregations where rabbi lay leadership, they participate in policy conference, number 1. Number 2 is they participate in terms of club membership. Friends of the institution, you know, a synagogue is a 501c3, but individuals will set up PACs, bringing in senators, congressional leaders, and making the case, arguing the case for a strong Israel-American relationship.
This is something that's kind of spread in time?
Well, I'll tell you, we started 4 years ago when I came on board, and we started with the 5 pilots, and now today, thank God, we have over 75 institutions,
That's
75
really
OU shuls that are participating in the OU AIPAC relationship.
That's amazing.
A number of them are from Chicago, and I just want to say this, some of the first 15, 20 were Or Torah, and we're Chovevei Zion in Skokie, and as well Kins now. We have some of the other congregations as well. Your congregation, where you're a major leader in bringing this initiative to your congregants.
It means so much, because the idea that people say I support Israel but don't do anything about it seems to be kind of a universal thing within synagogue life. But to actually see people physically doing things about it, not only financially, but being activists, it changes the whole I support Israel statement. And that really is so important, as you know, and the AIPAC philosophy, as you say, starts to spread not only among congregants but among people they know, because they talk to people they know that aren't from their congregation. Say, I'm going to policy conference, or so-and-so's coming down to speak for AIPAC. Why don't you come with me and join me? And it really does spread. It does make a difference.
Yeah. One thing that has to be said, and I'm speaking now to Jews living in concentrated areas, the vote of the senator from Wyoming is the exact same vote as the vote of the senator from New York, or Senator Kirk. Wyoming has 2 senators, Illinois has 2 senators. And the reality is we have to reach out. We bring in congressional leaders from Louisiana, from Mississippi, from Oklahoma, from Wyoming. And we need a network of pro-Israel active Jews.
Wonderful. Rabbi Weil, I wish you much success in all your endeavors with the OU, with AIPAC, and stay with us here on Tape with Rabbi Doug. Rabbi Steven Weil, we'll be right back.
Thank you.
Our collective presence with you today is in fact a message.
Everyone in this audience connects to Israel in a deeply personal way. It might have to do with where you grew up, your family background, or your earliest memories of the Jewish state. I'm an Orthodox rabbi who grew up in part of upstate New York that had many more cows than Jews. No joke. At least it seemed that way to me. You see, my parents are German Jewish refugees, and we're in the cattle. Let's start again. My parents are German Jewish refugees in the cattle business, and we had dairy farms. And my earliest memory associated with Israel was from my father. He encouraged our neighbors, our clients, who were mainly Methodist, Baptist, Lutheran, to buy Israel bonds. And he said it would be the greatest investment for themselves and for the Jewish state. I went to study at a yeshiva in Israel when I was 18. The year was 1982. Israel was at war with terrorists in Lebanon, and one by one, my new Israeli friends and their classmates, they were called up to serve. And when one, and then another, and still others died defending our collective right to safely live in the Jewish state, I gained a very different understanding of what patriotism is, of service, and of the precious nature of Israel and life itself.
I'm a Reformed rabbi who grew up surfing the waves off the shores of Southern California. I had my bar mitzvah shortly after the Six-Day War. I remember watching the drama unfold on TV in a country far, far away, and somehow feeling a part of what was going on. My junior year of college, I studied at Hebrew University. It was the year of the raid on Entebbe, and the nation was bursting with pride at the notion that Israel and the Jewish people didn't have to look to others to save the hostages of Flight 139. Instead, Israel had, with ingenuity and skill, saved the day. It was pride I shared. During my studies, I had the great privilege to learn from one of our people's most inspiring rabbis, Rabbi David Hartman, Zichrono Livracha, an Orthodox man whose love of our people and our heritage led me to pursue my own rabbinate.
I am a conservative rabbi who moved around a lot growing up. I went to college in Minneapolis. To pay for college, I worked full-time at an automotive warehouse. The Jewish owners of the business not only encouraged me to go to Israel, they paid for my ticket. When I returned to the University of Minnesota, I searched for a way to express my love for Israel back here in the States. My Hillel rabbi showed me that way, sending me to the AIPAC Policy Conference my junior year. Now I bring my own children here with me because I believe that the best way to give them the tools to advocate for Israel on campus is to come to the AIPAC Policy Conference while they are still in high school. Perhaps one of my strongest memories of Israel comes from more recent experience. A year ago, just after Hamas had shot more than 1,400 rockets and missiles into civilian population centers, the three of us joined other American Jewish leaders in Israel. We visited the communities hardest hit and uttered the words of Misha Berach, prayers of healing, over the hospital beds of those recovering from the wounds of war. With the words of healing on our lips, we stood together.
We stood that day, and we stand today as colleagues and good friends. But not just that, we stand together united in our common love for Kol Yisrael, all of Israel. We stand together in recognition of our precious tiny homeland and the fulfillment of Isaiah's ancient dream that the nation of Israel would one day become a light unto the nations, an Or LaGoyim, a bastion of decency, of freedom, and hope.
stand together in acknowledgement of the blessings that come to us as Americans, duty-bound to participate in this great experiment known as representative democracy, obligated to live out the dream of generations who taught us that a better world only comes about when we partner with God to make our world a better place.
And we stand together and acknowledge that our rich tradition not only records but celebrates the minority opinion. You all know the saying, 2 Jews, 3 opinions. We stand together to acknowledge that Jewish life is not about singing in unison, but rather singing together in harmony.
We stand together in gratitude and thanksgiving for the principles which guide AIPAC and make the organization the most effective means for ensuring the continued friendship between 2 great nations which seek to bring strength, security, and peace to our world.
We stand together not to assert the perfect nature of any country, for there is none, but rather we stand together to engage with all of you as proud, pro-Israel Americans in political action, which helps to ensure there will always be an America and an Israel for us to work to perfect. As rabbis from 3 major branches of our community, we are proud to work with AIPAC to secure a strong Israel.
And so we invite each of you, representing a vast array of backgrounds and beliefs, religions and stories of your own, to ask for the blessing of peace on the United States of America, on the state of Israel, and on our world. Oseh Shalom V'Romav.
We ask He who makes peace in high places.
Hu Ya'aseh Shalom Aleinu.
May the Holy One make peace for us.
Ve'al Kol Yisrael v'Imeru. Amen.
Grant peace to all Israel and all the world, and let us all together say,
Amen.
AIPAC board member Norm Brownstein.
We are honored to be joined this evening by Secretary of State John Kerry. So it is my privilege and pleasure to welcome and thank our friend and our Secretary of State, John Kerry.
Every time I come here, whether I get a chance to talk to a smaller group during the daytime sessions or otherwise, this is a remarkably inspiring gathering. People from every corner of the country coming together to demonstrate our deep support as Americans for a strong U.S.-Israel relationship. It is no exaggeration. It's not just words to say that every single one of you brings here such a special passion to a cause that you so fiercely believe in. And let me tell you something, unequivocally, after almost 30 years in the United States Senate, I can tell you that is precisely why AIPAC's work is in the best traditions of American democracy, and I thank you for practicing it. I want you to know that in my judgment, these democratic values are stamped in the DNA of both the United States and Israel. But we also share something much deeper than that. Like no other two countries on the planet, against the deepest odds, both America and Israel confidently, purposefully, set out to be examples to the world. Think about it. From its earliest days, Israel has always said it's not enough just to be one of many in a community of nations. Israel has strived since Isaiah's time to serve as a light unto the nations. And that responsibility to be a light unto the nations sounds actually unbelievably similar to something that we as Americans know is part of who we are too. My grandfather, 10 times over, too hard to count in other terms, was a man by the name of John Winthrop. And he came to what was then the New World. And he came in search of freedom, freedom to worship as he wished. He was a minister. He and his congregants were outcasts, persecuted, heading into a rough and unforgiving land with no guarantee even of survival. And on his way here, he delivered a now fairly famous sermon at sea, in which he called on his community to create a city upon a hill in their new home, America. So whether you call it a city upon a hill or a light unto the nations, it actually means the same thing. Being a model to the world. It means having a home that sets a standard of dignity, a standard of freedom. So the foundation of the friendship between the American people and the people of Israel was actually laid centuries before a single stone was set under the U.S. Capitol or under the Knesset. And looking around this room tonight, it is clear that our friendship has never been stronger. I'll tell you why. Because today, as Israel faces serious challenges to her future, it is America that will stand firmly by her side. I will tell you that with the leadership of President Obama, and you can look it up, you can measure it, it's not exaggeration, it's a matter of fact, there has been a complete, unmatched commitment to Israel's security. The record of this administration in providing aid, assistance, consultation, weapons, help, standing up in various international fora, fighting, I am proud to tell you, is unrivaled. And the bottom line, pure and simple, has been making sure that Israel has the means to defend itself by itself and defending Israel's right to be able to do so. That is what we've done. Every time Israel is subjected to attacks on its legitimacy, whether in the United Nations or from any nation, the United States will use every tool we have to defeat those efforts, and we will stand with Israel. Finally, peace demands that Israel fulfill its destiny not just as a nation, but also as a neighbor. And that begins with the Palestinians, and it extends to the entire Arab League, whose Arab Peace Initiative can open the door to peace and normalized relations with 20 additional Arab countries and a total of 55 Muslim countries. The upheaval in the Middle East has shown us all that Arabs and Israelis share some of the very same security concerns. Without a Palestinian conflict to divide them, these common interests can grow into real relationships and transform Israel's standing in the region. And I just invite you, I promise you, these conversations take place. I've had them throughout the Gulf region, throughout the Middle East, where increasingly those countries begin to see the possibilities of mutual security interests coming together for all of them against an Iran, against terrorism, against religious extremism. This is a commonality that is a new thread in the region, and I believe it brings potential new possibilities. It is also important to remember that ending the conflict means ending the incitement. President Abbas has called incitement a germ that must be removed, and he has sought our help in order to try to deal with the problem. And I can tell you that with any final agreement, it will also include a larger endeavor in order to help people on both sides move beyond the painful past and promote a culture of peace and tolerance. After all these years, my friends, it is really no mystery what the end game really looks like. I think you know that in your hearts. We understand what the end game is. I know what peace looks like. When I talk to Prime Minister Netanyahu and others, I think everybody shares this, because this is not new. After Camp David, Oslo, Wye, Annapolis, Taba, all of these efforts, what the end game should look like is straightforward. Security arrangements that leave Israelis more secure, not less. Mutual recognition of the nation state of the Jewish people and the nation state of the Palestinian people. An end to the conflict and all claims. A just and agreed solution to Palestinian refugees. One that does not diminish the Jewish character of the state of Israel. And a resolution that finally allows Jerusalem to live up to its name as the city of peace. It will take hard work. I'm not pretending any of the answers. These are all narrative issues. They're tough issues. They're complicated. But there is a vision of peace. And it takes tough choices on both sides, especially over the coming days. I guarantee you that America, that President Obama and this administration will be there every day of the week, every step of the way. And we will stand with Israel's leaders today and with the leaders of the future. And we will ensure that our light shines not just throughout the nations, but throughout the generations. Leaders like a fellow named Guy, I'll leave his last name out, but he's a young Israeli who took part in an exchange program at the State Department, sponsors that brings Israelis and Palestinians together to talk about their histories in their homes. Guy's grandparents fled Europe. He was born and raised in Jerusalem. He served in the IDF, and he worked as an entrepreneur in Israel's booming tech industry. And this is what he said in that program. We respect our past, but we don't want to live it. We are young enough to dream, to believe that change is possible, and that fear can be defeated. I think Guy is right. Change is possible. Fear can be defeated. But those are choices we have to make now. My friends, a few months ago I landed in Tel Aviv, and it was the 18th anniversary of Yitzhak Rabin's assassination. I went straight to Kikar Rabin, and I stood with the late Prime Minister's daughter, Dalia, at the site of her father's murder. And we stood just steps away from where the great general, in the last moments of his life, sang the famous lyrics of Shir Shalom. Don't whisper a prayer, sing the song of peace in a loud voice. Don't say the day will come, bring that day. That is our mission, all of us, in whatever capacity that we can, but just as important, our mission is also to raise our voices for peace, and we also need to listen. We have to listen to those who first gave voice to our values, voices that still echo thousands of years later. I think it was the first time I went to Israel. I spent a week there and went all over the country, and like many first-time visitors, I climbed Masada. I climbed it with a guide, some of you may know him or heard of him, a fellow by the name of Yadin Roman. Yadin, the publisher of Eretz Israel. And our group debated Josephus Flavius's account of what happened on the top of that mountain. the account of what happened 2,000 years before we were there. Then Yadin, after we had this long debate, made us all vote to determine, did it happen as he recounted or was it different? And we all voted unanimously it did happen the way he recounted. He told us to then walk to the edge of the precipice, which we did, and to look out across the chasm and to shout across the ancestral home of the Jewish people. And as we stood where every new Israeli soldier begins his or her service by swearing an oath to honor that history and secure the future, Yadin instructed us to shout all at the same time, Am Yisrael Chai. We shouted, and then I have to tell you, echoing across the chasm in the most eerie and unbelievably unforgettable way were these haunting echoes of Am Yisrael Chai, Am Yisrael Chai, Chai. I'll never forget hearing the echo of those words announcing off that mountain. It was literally like we were hearing the voices of the souls of those who had perished, sacrificing their lives for Israel 1,000 years ago. And we were affirming those words. The state of Israel lives. The people of Israel live. We have to listen to those voices. Those long ago who encouraged us to build a city on a hill, to be a light unto the nations, an example to the world, to ensure Israel's survival. And we have to listen to the voices of young people whose futures depend on the choices that we, the leaders of today, make. It's for their future that we will give new strength to the U.S.-Israel partnership, as AIPAC does like no other organization in our country. It's for their future that we will come together giving greater voice to the timeless oath, and we will remember forever those words and be driven by them. Am Yisrael Chai will be said generations upon generations into the future because of the work you do and the work we will do together. Thank you all very, very much.
That's it for part 2 here at AIPAC 14. Glad you could be with us. I want to thank everyone who participated in today's show, and I want to thank all of you for being with us. Remember, you can check out our website at www.tvrabbi.com, where you can also see former shows in Washington, D.C. on the web, as well as our other shows. And if you want to email us, the email address is info@tvrabbi.com. Stay with us next time, right here on Taped with Rabbi Doug. Shalom, everyone.
And I'm talking about Rabbi Doug. Talking about Rabbi Doug. Talking about Rabbi Doug on your TV show. Well, he's the rabbi for me. Anytime you need. You're gonna get married or you're gonna die. Gonna see Rabbi Doug. Gonna see Rabbi Doug. Gonna see Rabbi Doug. Gonna see Rabbi Doug on the TV tonight.
This has been a Taped with Rabbi Doug production.